Imagine for a second if the fundamental laws of our universe weren't just random, but actually followed a hidden, underlying mathematical blueprint. Well, today, we're diving into this explainer of a totally mind bending paper by Chiang Kai Chen that proposes exactly that. It's a concept that's literally going to challenge how we fundamentally view the entire universe around us.
We know the speed of light, right? And we've meticulously measured the exact mass of an electron. But there's this profound mystery in modern science. Why is the universe perfectly tuned to these exact numbers? Are these values just, random cosmic dice rolls? Or is there an actual structural reason for them? So traditionally, there's been this strict conceptual wall in science. On one side, we've got elegant mathematical constants that just naturally arise from pure geometry. Think of pi or Euler's number. But then on the other side, we have physical constants like the mass of a top quark. And these just seem messy, experimentally measured, and frankly, kind of arbitrary. We just plug them into our equations because, well, that's what our instruments tell us they are. But the paper we're analyzing today proposes a universal framework. It's sort of like a cosmic decoder ring called the Unified Spectral Architecture. And it suggests that these physical and mathematical constants aren't isolated parameters at all. Instead, they're structurally linked together in a shared recursive system. To picture this, think of the master equation for this system. C equals S times G to the power of N, kind of like tuning an old-school analog radio. S acts as a scaling factor, basically adjusting the volume. G selects the generator, effectively picking the frequency band you're listening to. And N? Well, that's the specific integer notch on the dial that locks you into a station.
Section 1, the mathematical spectrum. Let's start tuning this cosmic radio. For the mathematical domain, the framework sets the generator dial to the square root of phi, the golden ratio. This specific frequency naturally governs continuous recursive geometry. Basically, it's the baseline signal of pure mathematics. Now, as we tune the N dial through various integers along this spectrum, we don't just get static. No, we hit these crystal clear resonances that produce famous mathematical constants. If you tune it to -7.5, you get Euler's number. Down at -12, boom, out pops pi. Turn it to -28, and the square root of q emerges loud and clear. It's amazing. And remarkably, empirical analysis shows that turning this single dial perfectly aligns with an astonishing 100 unique mathematical constants across geometry, analysis, and number theory. It literally generates an entire structural ladder of mathematics from just one continuous base frequency. Moving on to Section 2, the physical spectrum. Let's look at discrete matter. The paper defines the physical spectrum by changing the generator dial to the square root of 3. So why that value? Well, it's associated with a ternary spectrum. Simply put, this naturally creates discrete, stepped, hierarchical organization. It moves us from smooth, continuous geometry into the chunky, solid building blocks of actual matter. And here is where it gets wild. Tuning the N dial on this physical machine accurately spits out the seemingly arbitrary masses of the standard model particles at specific, discrete indices. Index 3 outputs the electron mass. Index 4 hits the Z boson. And Index 1 perfectly tunes in the incredibly heavy top quark. This ternary spectrum impressively aligns with the masses of all 15 standard model particles. This pretty much proves it's far more than just some numerical coincidence. The actual matter making up you, me, and the stars, it all sits on this exact mathematical frequency. Section 3, where math meets physics. Let's look at the spectral intersection. According to the framework, the physical universe essentially boots up real particles in regions where the discrepancy, which they represent with delta, between the math spectrum and the physics spectrum is nearly zero. It acts like a cross-spectral filter. When the pure math and the discrete physics harmonize perfectly, a physical constant is realized. And this brings us right to the climax of the paper. Fundamental realities like the top quark, the electron, and even the speed of light perfectly occupy these stable, low-discrepancy crossover points. If you look at the delta column, the difference between the math norm and the physics norm is practically zero. They sit in perfect structural resonance. The accuracy of this framework is just stunning.
Up to 60 of the generated mathematical constants hit a 99.9 to 100% match with their known, strictly calculated values. And similarly, over on the physics side, 87% of the matched particle masses boast an accuracy of 95.2% and above. They're emerging organically from the recursive system rather than being awkwardly shoehorned in. Now, you might be wondering about a really specific piece of that master equation we talked about earlier, the S-dial, the base 10 scaling factor. I mean, isn't our decimal system just an arbitrary human convention? Didn't we just make it up because we have 10 fingers? Well, astoundingly, the paper demonstrates that the base 10 scaling factor naturally emerges as a composite structure born directly from the interaction between the mathematical and physical generators. Watch this. The physical generator squared multiplied by the mathematical generator to the fifth power equals approximately 9.99, so essentially 10. Decimal scaling is actually structurally built into the math itself. No fingers required.
Section 4, a unified reality. Let's talk about this shared architecture.
What this framework suggests is that mathematics isn't merely some invented language we use to describe physics. Rather, both domains originate from the exact same logarithmic scaling architecture. Essentially, they're just two sides of the exact same recursive coin. Instead of treating physical constants as arbitrary inputs dictated by random chance, this explainer highlights that they are structurally stable manifestations of pure mathematics. Matter and math are deeply, fundamentally intertwined at the root level of reality. We've seen that the known particles map perfectly onto these discrete integer notches, right? But there are still empty spaces on the dial. And this leaves us with a thrilling question to ponder. If we now possess the mathematical decoder ring for reality, what undiscovered secrets, entirely new particles, or hidden physical laws are hiding right now in the untuned frequencies of the universe?